My central thesis of like why the left should have an idea of unified Europe or like what to do with the European Union, which are very related questions, because it's getting to the point now where like the libs and the fash certainly do. They certainly have
Yeah.
an idea of what to do for it, and like uh either we said off mic or at the beginning of this podcast, my brain is mush, but the fact that like a lot of these far right parties that are rising in Europe have all kind of like abandoned their like
Yeah, you said that earlier on
yeah
the recording. Yeah.
their criticism of the European Union, and they're happy to like unify it. And also like at the same time, why wouldn't they? Like the European Union has an absolutely brutal external border policy
Yeah.
that's aimed towards non-white countries, and
And I always get the feeling that them from especially the like the eurosceptic left or whatever that they understand they understand like the brutality of what the euro of what the EU does.
yeah
To other countries, they understand it as being kind of also then a continuation of like a buffer zone to like Russia and whatnot, being kind of this continuation of
it's
a
like a Cold
containment
War
policy.
project. Yeah.
Given not all members are part of NATO, but they kind of function in that way as being like partner nations
I think
with NATO.
I think the biggest tell would be the fact that like Finland didn't bother to join the European Union until the fall of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Because Finland recognized that it was.
Yeah, and
like
it still is very much that, especially with
Yeah.
seeing then like again, Ukraine is on that map from that music video.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
there is very much the European desire of wanting to claim Ukraine as part of this project. But like within all that of legitimate criticism of what it is, it's still like kind of like at the end of the day, like and I know I'm going to sound like a member of fucking like DM25 or whatever, but the system that then's in place of Europe is of unified European countries kind of being able to function in this whatever it is,
Yeah.
this union, this federation, whatever it is, can be far more beneficial for Europe than if you cling on to the nation state idea of each and every individual country. So I kind of like do I have to like in that sense I will accept the lesser of two evils there. Like I'll accept a brutal EU than, you know, Hungary, Germany, France, and Italy, or whoever the fuck it is who are just becoming insane right now, just going at it if there wasn't like a... And I'll give it, like, the EU's, like, politically is horribly complex, horribly technocratic. The Eurozone is horrible for a country that then does not have, you know, a massive economy. Like, there are, you know, these things that I can obviously see are bad, but completely ditching it and going back to the nation-state concept is not an option.
Yeah, I think the other thing is like the idea that if we left the European Union, we could become a socialist utopia is like, yeah, that's possible, but you can't really guarantee that for every country after the collapse of the European Union, because like more of them, you could say to be generous, you could say for every country that turns into something socialist and good, another country will turn fash. My pessimistic outlook is that if the European Union collapsed, a lot of countries would turn super fash.
I think most of the like really powerful European countries would turn fash. We see that even with the European Union just existing.
Yes,
regardless of having an EU critical point, like they just really love the nation state too on top of it.
Yeah.
And there is like a conflicting sovereignty that exists obviously within the European Union, but yeah, to that other point though, if like I'm just imagining if I don't know, like there'd only be certain countries that then could like become socialist in that sense. Like if
and maintain itself without being,
like let's say that then I don't know, like Portugal becomes socialist. I mean, you even see this too within the EU as well, or within like
the election of Cyprus could be like, or Syriza could be seen.
Exactly that. Like I know that like the term like what is it, Syrization has been, or Syrification?
No, pacification. Like, to be turned into PASOK. Yeah.
So that everyone complains that then like whenever you know a socialist government gets existed in a small peripheral European country that they just, you know, appease liberals. It's like they don't have an option half the time. Because at least in the case of Greece, there was always a sense that then the European and the internal governmental bureaucratic structures would just like not inform the government of things that were happening so that they would fail.
Yeah.
Like there is, depending on how big and powerful your country is, you can't sustain yourself as a social. I mean, look at Venezuela, you know, like good example.
Google Venezuela.
Google Venezuela. You know, like it is extremely hard to then make yourself, especially if you're a smaller nation, given Venezuela has money because of oil.
Yeah.
But let's say that then if Greece or Portugal decides like, okay, we're going to become socialists now, they have no industry. Like,
No,
they're
yeah,
fucked.
absolutely.
And sanctions against these countries would.
And even like the fact that like Venezuela was only able to get on its feet because basically of the pink wave. Like it happened in South America that a handful of countries, and then you also had Cuba sitting there, were able and willing to support you transition to this kind of like, well, slightly transition to this type of government. Yeah, attempt to transition. That's probably a better word.
Yeah.
There's again no guarantee that would happen. If Portugal became socialist, you would really want Spain to also be socialist, or France or Ireland or the UK or whatever, like some periphery like neighboring countries. Yeah, and
to be fair too, Venezuela's been able to like keep themselves afloat because they've been able to I mean, given yes, they have hyperinflation right now.
Yeah.
But previously to that, they generated revenue through having the world's largest oil reserves.
Yes.
Like they based stupidly everything on this thing that you can easily just boycott and sanction.
Yeah. And
then an economic crisis.
And again, like I think the more credit goes to something like Cuba managing to like hold on despite absolutely fucking brutal sanctions in that country is like probably the exception that proves the rule, though, rather than anything else, because like every other country that like nominally claimed to remain socialist either is no longer socialist or is brutalized to the point that it can't be socialist. Yeah. So anyway, that whole concept of like, yeah, we possibly need to do something with Europe. I think another big point about like why you want to have an answer for like a unified Europe or like what to do with Europe is because something that I feel like a lot of like left anti-EU will like fail to acknowledge or want to talk about, or just don't know about it if I'm being generous, is the fact that the concept, the basic layman's concept of the European Union is still incredibly popular.
Yeah.
Most people who like the European Union, I think from our perspective and from anyone on the left's perspective, would be that you don't really know enough about like how it works. There's a lot of brutal things like you said, and that's not common knowledge. And usually when you pitch it to people, they're usually horrified.
Yeah.
Like again, the whole drowning in the Mediterranean, they were horrified at that. They just didn't know the EU was
it's always kind of like it's always kind of that thing that then like when you first get into like finding out, like at least for me, like when you first find it, like you get the information that the United States is a pretty shit country.
Yeah.
When it comes to international relations, or when it comes to then like, you know, poverty in the country itself.
Yeah.
And you become like overzealously anti-American. You know?
Yeah.
Where you're just like, oh yeah, like North Korea is against the United States. I'm fucking pro Yucha then at this point. And you see a lot of that on Twitter and stuff like that. Or like they're like, oh yeah, like I'm an Assadist, but I'm left wing.
Yeah.
You know, and I kind of get the same thing from younger people, especially when they find out the bad stuff about Europe, is that then they become overzealously than the exact antithesis of that. And like for a lot of people, I imagine it's just like a phase if they're younger, and for like, you know, if they're older people, then obviously like I don't know, I don't have hope for them because they probably then have like, you know, made their mark with, you know, why I don't know, but I always find it to be a lot of times just kind of like a phase of younger people that they're just like very much like, yo, I found out that this thing sucks, so I'm against it no matter what.
I think it's also just like there's that understanding of the European Union, but like you have to separate that from the like common understanding of the European Union, which is it's really nice that like if things go to shit for me here, I could fucking move to another part of Europe and live there for the rest of my life. Presumably if it's better there, or if like my industry is there, or if my wife or children are there, whatever the hell. And I know there's like some material conditions, like not everyone has the money to move. That's a problem no matter whether the EU is there or not. But like the common understanding of the European Union is like open borders, and it's kind of convenient that we all have the same currency. That's usually what people are saying yes to when they're asked in a survey. And none of those concepts fly in the face of like a left-wing ideal, like open borders and that kind of shit. That's not necessarily something that you would have to impose.
Yeah.
The things that people on the left oppose with the European Union, I like to think that the general public would also oppose if they like explained it to them or like talked to them about the reality of the situation. Yeah, that's generally my kind of take on it.